Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Tyler Sellars with us today. He's a self-storage investor. He's CEO at Cactus and a commercial real estate AI provider. We're going to have fun today. Tyler was on another pods of mine, a client of mine, Alex Burkhardt. Shout out to Alex. And apparently was a great podcast. So I thought, why not? I also saw some Halifax, some New Brunswick in his profile. My dad's from there. I'm Canadian from Montreal, so I thought, why not? Seems like a great guy with great startup experience under his belt. So, Alex, welcome. Tyler, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me, Charles. I really appreciate it. It's very kind. And yeah, just to say a little bit about me, like you shared, I'm also Canadian. I live in Spain currently, but I built a real estate portfolio in Moncton, New Brunswick mainly, and then grew that into transferring that wealth into self-storage instead. Self-storage being a great asset class, a hedge class, against other economic development. So if something is going bad or something's going good, self-storage is a great investment to make. So I went into that. I also realized that I could automate a lot of the processes. So allowing me to move to Spain was definitely one of the reasons why I wanted to invest in self-storage. And with those learnings, I built Cactus. So trycactus.com is now my main venture. It's a software company that does underwriting for commercial real estate investors. So we work with Excel. We also replace Excel. We can work with large investors all the way down to mom and pops who are just buying their first facility. So it's really cool. We're working with the multifamily and self-storage classes at the moment and having a lot of fun helping these people.
Right. Let's start with self-storage. It's interesting what you mentioned. So I guess if there's an economic downturn, people will not have place to put their stuff into because they're either evicted or something bad happens to them and their life and their economic situation. So they will go to self-storage instead, which is like $250 a month. Is that the logic?
Yeah, I mean the worst part is also the best part for self-storage. I mean, I'm a business owner, so sometimes it can seem like it's the wrong thing, but I mean there's some humor here. So when you get a divorce, the first thing that you look for typically is storage. Divorces spiked in COVID for obvious reasons, so we saw a huge migration of storage clients during that period of time. And then after COVID, things kind of settled down for a second and really kind of normalized. And now we're starting to see a peak as well. The reason I think for that, though, is because interest rates are so high in the United States and in Canada, less so here in Europe where I'm at, but still interest rates are high, meaning that people don't really want to refinance, nor do they really want to go out of their existing place. So if they're renting, for example, we tend to see a lot of people move out of their apartments and into nicer apartments when they get a better job or when interest rates are low. So the prices tend to go up in rent. And so if their unit is going up in rent by a couple $100 and they're like, well, I'm paying for a crappy apartment and I could get a nicer apartment for just $100 more than what they're considering, then let's do that. So we see a huge migration and changes in places where people live. And anytime that people change where they're living, that's a good time for storage. So it could be good or bad times. It just depends on the time.
And question for you, do you attribute the spike right now to the elections coming, or is it COVID care package coming up to tuition? What do you think it is spiking
No,
right now?
no, I don't think it really has anything to do with the elections per se from a macroeconomic perspective. I really do think, however, though, that it has something to do with interest rates, and a lot of people refinanced on their homes or got new deals around 2019, 2020 when interest rates were super low. And now they're coming up to 2025 where that 5-year cliff or that 5-year term is coming up for maturity, and they have to refinance or get a different rate. And I don't think that they're
Right.
well prepared for that to come. So they might have, $500,000 property that at 2% made sense, but now at 8% or whatever, it's not going to. So that's a scary time for a lot of people, and it's going to mean either a lot of downsizing or worse.
Right. Do you also resell storage units of people that haven't paid you in a while and are just leaving their shit out there? Like, what's
Yeah,
the
the
deal with
storage
that?
wars. The
Yeah.
storage wars. Yeah, no, we have to do that once in a while. It's not as flashy as what the TV makes you feel, but yeah, essentially there's these online portals that you can go and find storage facilities up for auction, and you just buy them from there. So there's a few Canadian companies that we work with, software companies that we work with in order to make that happen. It definitely happens. It's not that common as TV would make you think, but it happens. I mean, one of the greatest stories ever was one of the units went up for auction. A gentleman had unfortunately passed, and we didn't know. Of course, we weren't informed that he had passed. He just wasn't paying anymore. And typically it comes through credit cards. So he wasn't paying. We were trying to get in touch with him. Nothing was happening. We were like, okay, you know what? We have to put it up for auction. We open the unit to take the pictures of the facility or of the unit, and there's a Porsche 911 in there. And
Oh.
as a storage facility owner, I wish that I had the ability to say, okay, I'm not putting this up for auction, but that would be illegal. So you put it up for auction and then you just end up bidding on your own facility. And yeah, it was a crazy bid. But of course, we made efforts as well to reach out to family members of his or whatever, to bid on it as well, to gain access to that property, because that's how it has to work within New Brunswick. Anyways, how it works is once it gets to 45 days, then you put it up for auction. You inform the tenant, or we tried to find the family members, anything with a similar name and background. And so we went through that and found a couple, reached out to them and said, hey, I think your father, your grandfather, whoever has this storage facility with us and he hasn't paid. It's gone up for auction. Here's the auction link. So if it's a tenant that you're reaching out to, typically how it works or how it has to work is that you give them the access to the facility, to the auction first, and then you're allowed to put it up for public. But that Porsche 911 would have been a beautiful thing in my garage, that's for sure.
Right. And let's hope that these folks were immigrants with a specific name and not Leblanc or Cormier, because you'd have to reach out to 50% of New Brunswick, something like that. Um, Give me the economics of what you have, like in terms of units. Do you own like full parks? How many units? And what percentage are rented right now? And how much you make on each unit?
I don't have the number of how much profit I would make per unit. Typically, how we calculate things in an underwriting is per square foot, just to make things simple. But for the purpose of this podcast, how it works is I have over 300 units at this moment, and about 60 to 80%, depending on the facility, is rented. And that 80%, once you hit that 75 to 80%, it goes to stabilized. So it's this class that you just call it stabilized. Anything below 75% or 70% for some underwritings, or some people consider that non-stabilized. So then you try to get it up to that stabilization. But you can make good money off of storage, of course. It's not as crazy as, some other asset classes, but the reward versus time and effort certainly has a play. It's also made out of concrete and steel, and people aren't living in it. So there's no risk of kind of killing someone with not putting enough insulation in your walls, or them destroying your drywall and you have to replacing it every month. So that certainly has a big play. If they kind of ding the stainless steel, it doesn't really affect me all that much. Versus if they were to punch a hole through my drywall, it cost me a couple $100, if not more. And yeah, it's a big nuisance to get tenants out of your multifamily, which I experienced before in my previous life. And then getting into storage was kind of this blessing.
Right. And it's 250 bucks Canadian minimum per unit, or?
No, you have units that are 5 by 10. So those are typically smaller units. They go anywhere between, let's say if you're in the United States, they're lower rents. In Canada, it's higher rents. It comes out to around the same in US dollars. But for example, what I'm charging for a 5 by 10 is $95. And then what I'm charging for a 10 by 20 is $220. I also have industrial units as well, typically made for bigger companies that are looking for big spaces, and those can be $5,000 a month or whatever. So
Got it. And to acquire such a part, like what kind of investment is it? Is it a couple of hundreds of thousands? Is it a million, 300
Millions, yeah.
units? Yeah, millions. Okay.
Yeah, you need some good money or good lending or good partners to make it happen. So I was fortunate enough to have built a multifamily portfolio prior to, and then I transferred that wealth into self-storage instead. But it's certainly not a it's not a cheap asset class.
Yeah. So it gives you cash flow, and from that you can get higher loans from the bank, and then you can acquire some more. Is that like one of the main financial engineering slash leverage that you use to grow your portfolio?
Yeah, we did debt. We did a lot of cash. I would recommend a 50-50. So typically in multifamily, you do 70-30 or 75-25, something along those lines for commercial real estate. But what I recommend in storage is about 50-50.
Now tell me about Cactus. Like, why not keeping all your wealth into the storage, self-storage units that you have, and why did you think of diversifying or going into SaaS?
Well, I think one of the best things to do in order for you to be scalable is to build a software company or some sort of online presence. So that certainly was interesting as an entrepreneur. But the truth of the matter is, I probably wouldn't have built Cactus if it weren't needed, obviously. And so the reason why I felt confident to build a software company was because I knew that this was extremely warranted at this point now. We're in an age where AI is developing a lot of the tech behind the scenes. The competitive edge is getting even higher. Software is supposed to be really great now at this point. However, the software providers in our field, in our industry of commercial real estate, although being a very rich asset class, is not conclusive to what you can expect from other software providers. So I just felt, because I came from the world of tech prior to investing in real estate, that there was a massive opportunity for me to be able to kind of leverage a lot of my experience from previous lives and then bring this to people who I have direct connections with as a real estate investor. So I was a part of numerous groups online, and I was sharing out my designs for this software and my feature ideas. I gathered feedback from that, and then we built the company, and now it's doing really well. I mean, we raised a nice round. We have some great partners, about 50 clients signed up on the wait list. And the benefit really is that we do the underwriting. We can do a quick analysis, which is essentially a napkin deal. We can gather demographic, geographic data points for you to be able to make decisions prior to getting to that financial reporting of saying, is it the crime high, and is there enough traffic going by? Are the rates good enough in this area to make it work? If not, it's not even worth getting to a financial analysis. So why even push that forward? And then if it is worth it, then we go to step one, which is the quick analysis. It takes about 5 minutes in Cactus. And then if that's worth it, you send an LOI, you try to get it off market, and then you go into your full due diligence, which you can also do in Cactus. So that's the whole point, is to be able to save about 92% of the time that it requires to do an underwriting currently.
Right. And yeah, multiple features of the product. Is AI underwriters that the latest one? What's the most popular feature on the platform?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our first product is the AI underwriter. So the AI underwriter comes out this fall. It's a full analysis. The quick analysis will come out in a month. And yeah, that's exactly it. We focus right now on underwriting for commercial real estate investors, all the way from mom and pops to publicly traded REITs at the moment.
And how do you make money off this?
We have a SaaS model. We also have a pay-as-you-go model. So you don't have to pay per month if you don't have to, or if you don't want to. You can also pay as you go. So if you want to just use it for one property, let's say you do one underwriting every 6 months, there's no point in paying for 5 months of time when you're only using it for that 1 month. So what we do is we do a pay-as-you-go model as well.
Why should someone invest in real estate when they can run SaaS companies, which tends to grow faster and provide like better cash flow, in my opinion?
Yeah. So 90% of SaaS companies fail. About 20% of self-storage facilities fail. There's one reason. If you have money, you can be an LP to a limited partner. simply that just means a silent investor in a GP, so a general partner. Whereas when you're investing in software tech, it's very hard to find the right methods to be able to invest properly. So you might be an LP within a fund, and that fund then goes and finds the companies that they want to invest in, and that's certainly who invested in us, is various funds invested in Cactus to be able to help us grow. And so that's where we're at today. But I think from an LP's perspective, if you're thinking of investing in something, there's certainly upside in investing in self-storage. There's certainly upside in any investment class, but the risk or the versus the reward is the difference. The reward in tech is extremely high, but the risk then therefore is high as well. So you try to make investments in founders that have done it in the past, or have the connections, or are building something that you really truly believe in. Otherwise, I would recommend just investing in real estate asset classes or other silent forms of asset classes if you're not interested in operating.
With the advancement of AI and robotics, do you feel that the real estate bubble could pop? Let's say that there's a YC company that invents a robot that can build a house for 10x cheaper. Do you think that would change the value and the perception of the full market?
Yeah, and I think it should. I think that prices for homes right now are extremely high. They're way too high for what they are. I mean, as a Canadian, we are buying properties that are made out of wood, and they're rotting, and they're super old, and they're not up to standard, whereas the buildings that are being made now are too expensive, but there's not enough homes being built. So the opportunity for some construction company to come in and say, okay, we've innovated the way that buildings are made, would be extremely valuable in driving that price point down. I just read something where the average price in Ontario, Canada for a home is somewhere around $780,000 on average. And then you have in Florida, the home pricing is 340 or something along those lines on average. So, and that's in USD. So if you match, it's ridiculous. So the point is that we need to bring the prices down so that people in our age demographic and younger can start buying properties of their own, not just as an investment, but just as some place to live that they could call their own pridefully. So I think that has a huge opportunity. It obviously affects the equity buildup that as a real estate investor I would have, but I think that for the general good of the population, it's warranted and it's needed.
And what would be the challenge of building such a startup? I mean, you need machine vision, and you need like the robot to understand a bunch of things which construction dudes understand. What would be the challenge of building such a company that would build houses for 10x cheaper?
Well, I don't think I'm the right guy for that question because that's not my bread and butter. That's not where I'm focusing any of my energy on. But I certainly have seen companies that do it. Boxable being an example where you can just fold up a building in the matter of a couple of days and you have a house. So, but yeah, again, I don't think that I'm the right person for that question.
The current company, Cactus, like you are about to launch, what's your projections in terms of revenue in the next couple of months?
A couple months we're not too worried about. We don't want to pump the numbers of income just to be able to say that we did. We're certainly not interested in that. Our whole point is to provide value. So once we provide value and we hit this PMF, so this product market fit, then we can start scaling up the revenue numbers. But our expectations are around 7 to 8 million within 4 years.
And what are suspicions that you have that make you think that you'll get a product market fit?
You do a lot of analysis on your customers. So you just do a ton of customer interviews, how they're using the product, what they're expecting from the product. And the way that we did this is everyone that signed up for the waitlist on trycactus.com, we reach out to and we do an interview with. And this is the initial interview. And then if we feel a need that there's something else that we need to drive into, then we continue to have interviews. And then we also have our design partners who are advisors, professionals within the field of real estate. They could be brokers, they could be real estate investors, they could be publicly traded acquisition manager employees. But essentially, we have monthly calls with every one of those individuals to showcase to them our new designs, our new features, and then they provide the feedback, and then we're going to go to market with a pretty outstanding product.
On the investor side of the platform, how do you select potential investors that can inject money into these deals?
So we're not a marketplace for LPs and GPs to connect. We're simply an underwriting platform that allows for you to be able to send out this deal to your LPs that you may already know. So your responsibility as a GP is to find your LPs at this moment. Certainly Cactus will be able to do that in the future, but our core focus at this moment is to build the analysis to make it whether it's worth the investment or not. And then we build the marketing package to be able to send out to LPs.
And tell me about the AI behind that. Like, how does an AI, like, if I would push that to Chat GPT, like, what would be the difference between that and Cactus?
Yeah, so no, ChatGPT is not a good calculator, that's for sure. So we've built a language model that allows for us to take anything from an OM, so an offering memorandum, an appraisal, T12 cash flow statement, rent roll. You can drag and drop that into Cactus, and then we finish the analysis with you, and we guide you through the entire process. And that's why, when we're competing against things like Argus or Excel, Excel is, unless you buy a template, but even if you bought that template, it doesn't go into things, data sources such as your demographics, geographics, risks of this facility. So for example, wind, is it really strong in this area? And are you going to be needing reinforced concrete with reinforced brackets to be able to support that building? With rain, are you going to be in a flood zone? So Excel certainly can't do that. Argus is a really terrible example of an underwriter, but it's the most commonly used ones for these larger companies because they were kind of first to market. They're also created by Altus Group, so that makes sense. But it was built essentially in 1998 and never touched again. So it's a very poor example of what an underwriter in 2024 can look like.
What will be your priorities this year except growth? Will you be raising capital as well?
In March, we're going to raise capital again. That's certainly coming. But at this moment, our whole focus is to build and provide value. So March 2025, Cactus will be raising a larger round. But as of until then, our core focus is to build the most outstanding underwriter that's ever been seen. And so just to speak on that AI component from your previous question, essentially you can drag and drop those documents in. We automate and it filled the information from those documents. So it's not just monkey work of you putting in numbers or data into an Excel sheet. And then we build an analysis with you. You can create the LOI directly through Cactus. And then you can also, so you can submit the offer through Cactus. That's an LOI, letter of offering, letter of intent. And so then we can go and submit that through Cactus, submit an offer, as well as the next step of doing the full due diligence and then creating the marketing package that you can submit and send out to your advisors or your LPs. That's a super significant piece because currently acquisition managers or VP of finance, anyone doing the underwriting of any facility, they may have 50 facilities that they have to underwrite every month. And what they're doing is they're in Excel in their template, kind of smashing numbers together and trying to gather all the data sources for themselves. Whereas with Cactus, we automate a lot of that process. But then after you've done that Excel, then you submit that over to your marketing team, and your marketing team then has to understand the numbers, put it together in a nice PDF or something online, and then you go out and send that over to your LPs. Whereas with Cactus, everything's done in 20 minutes. So it's a really fascinating and an amazing approach to how underwriting will be in the future.
Love it, Ty. Can you tell us where to find out more about yourself and Cactus?
Absolutely. So I'm Tyler Sellars, CEO of trycactus.com. Feel free to schedule a demo. It goes directly to my calendar. Also, you can just join the wait list and we'll give you access as soon as possible.